talk about everything as well. But our main focus today will be tort, so don't stress if that's what you're here for today. So I've made this worksheet for you guys, which I'll send out for you guys at the end of this session. I'll add a little bit more to it, but essentially this is something similar to what I had for my exam. So of course in your exam you guys will have notes, and I encourage you guys to make something similar to this. So as always, there's only going to be 4 topics. So the first topic is about the APP, so data privacy. Second one, torts as well, which I've popped in the same table that you guys always follow. It's always the exact same steps. And then of course the broader policy test as well that I've popped in there for you guys. Thirdly, as well, the partnership law. So we talk about the partnership acts, which again, there's only 4 categories, and just a little bit of a snippet, we talk about company law as well. So firstly, we'll go through the data privacy APPs really quickly, but as a quick recap, the data privacy in APPs, this is the easiest part in the unit. All you have to do is read the case study and essentially match the facts. But as a quick rundown, you always have to determine if a company is an APP entity, and you do that by using the definition in section 5. Now, the only exception that when it's not an APP entity, it's when it's a small business. So APP entities have to follow something we call the APPs, but you don't have to do that if you're a small business. Now, the second thing that you always have to determine as well is that you have to determine that the company is actually dealing with personal information. So with that being said, you just have to follow the notes. You just have to follow the dot points that was outlined in section 6.1 and just match the facts again. If it says religious beliefs in the case study, and then personal information, section 6, subsection 1 says religious belief is considered personal information, you just match the facts. So again, that is quite simple there. Step number 2, you have to determine all relevant APPs. So there's only 13 APPs, which I just encourage you guys to look at my notes, the table that I sent you guys, and you just have to match which APPs fit the best. Again, that's really self-explanatory. And then when we look at step 3, there's 7 exceptions. So again, simply match the facts, and consequences as well. Again, you just match the facts for that one. So really, really simple there. So I'll pop that one there for you guys. So now we'll move on to torts, which is our main focus for today. So someone says, will we be sent this worksheet afterwards? So yes, you will. So make sure you guys do the attendance. I'll send that to you guys after as well. Now, as I'm sure you guys are aware for torts, we always have to address 4 things. Firstly, if there is a duty of care owed. Secondly, if there's been a breach of this duty of care. Thirdly, the causation and remoteness test. I'll pop that in there as well. Causation test and remoteness test. And lastly, the defenses that we argue. So again, there's only 3 there as well, 3 defenses. But what you guys could do as well is just dot point some cases that you can refer to when you talk about section 48, subsection 1A. Likewise, section 48, subsection 1B, just some cases and what the cases represent or what they mean. So you just have something to refer to as well. So even in your exam, what I would generally do is I would have a dot point. So I'll do 1 dot determining if there is a duty of care, and then I would go on to explain it. And then secondly, I'll make a new dot point that says, has there been a breach of this duty of care? So that's how I would approach the exam. I did my exam in dot points and it was fine. It could be a little bit different, but there's so many ways you can approach it. I just personally found dot points, and something like this worked out really well for me. Now, again, we'll talk about the broader policy test, which will be our main focus for today, because I feel like a lot of you guys aren't quite familiar with it. A lot of you guys have asked questions about this, but this is really, really important in determining whether or not a duty of care actually exists. So physical harm, that's actually really, really easy to prove. All you have to do is prove that the harm is actually reasonably foreseeable and prove the neighbor test derived from Donahue v. Stevenson. That's all you have to do. And that neighbor test is essentially indicating that a relationship exists between the plaintiff and the defendant, and that the defendant should, in fact, protect the plaintiff. So again, that's really easy. So for example, A bar owner should protect the customers because anything the bar owner does would directly affect the customers. So again, this neighbor test is really straightforward. You would only need a sentence like that. So I think you guys most likely would get a question on physical harm, but just for the sake of it as well, you may also get a question on mental harm. So for mental harm, our main focus is Annette v. Australian Station. And in that case, it was established that in order to establish a duty of care, firstly, you have to prove they were in a close relationship. So that doesn't mean they have to be immediate family. They just have to be in a close relationship as well. And secondly, the plaintiff witnessed the victim being injured or killed. But importantly as well, you don't have to witness it. So that's either or of these 2 points. But most importantly as well, this phrase here, reasonably foreseeable of a person of normal fortitude. So mental harm. So you have to ask yourself the question, literally copy this phrase. This phrase is where you will get your marks from. Copy this. So prove either or one of these 2 points, and you have to prove this. So you'd have to say, because my brother died, it was reasonably foreseeable for me to get, trauma, that type of stuff. So what are some examples of close relationship where they are not family? With a question like that, you would have to refer to cases. So what cases have you found previously that would best reflect that? But some examples are, if you have a sort of friend relationship, that wouldn't apply, but that would apply, this would apply if you were like distant, like not immediate. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm getting confused. So it would apply if you were like auntie and uncle. So I think immediate family, this would apply for, but if it's not immediate family, this is really hard to prove. There are some exceptions to this as well, but you would have to refer to cases for this. But when you talk about establishing whether or not a duty of care exists because of mental harm, you have to prove the plaintiff witnessed the victim being injured or killed. This is not always true. You don't have to witness it in order to develop a mental injury. That's really important. Or they were in a close relationship. So that could be they were dating, grandma, son, that type of stuff. But you always have to refer to a case for that. And most importantly, this test, mental harm was reasonably foreseeable of a person of normal fortitude. This phrase is so important, and I cannot emphasize that enough. So always remember that one there. Now, again, not that difficult as well. It was difficult when we first learned it, but now, as a quick summary, that's all you have to prove. But now, when we talk about omissions as well, we talk about the duty to warn test. So that was established from Rogers v. Whittaker, so always refer to this case as well. A reasonable person in the patient's position, if warned of the risk, would be likely to attach significance to it. So essentially what that means is, if I was a patient and I wanted to get LASIK, the opt-out needed to inform me of all the risks that could occur. Like, for example, I could potentially get blindness in the future. And a reasonable person would be able to attach significance to the risk of blindness. So that essentially means that you understand each risk, and each risk would have a significant impact. So that's essentially what omissions mean. It's called the duty to warn test, established from Rogers v. Whittaker. So again, not too difficult. Again, we say, if there's a positive duty to warn, we must warn them. So that's, for example, warning patients of any potential risks that may incur if you go do any medical procedures, that type of stuff. Informing them, that's the main one, informing them of any risk that potentially may occur. Because if you don't inform them of the risk, and then you, for example, you get blind, and no one told me I was going to get blind if I was to get LASIK surgery, then I would be able to establish a duty of care existed in relation to omissions. Now, everyone should understand pure economic loss as well, because we spent so long talking about it. The first one, pure economic loss due to statements. Oh, so I think I've got this the wrong way around. Oops, sorry guys. When we talk about pure economic loss due to statements, we determine firstly if it's second party or third party, and then we apply the appropriate test as well. And on top of that, we attach the cases to it. So if you guys look at your previous week's worksheet, I would have made 2 tables for you guys with some cases. Just expand on that a little bit more. But this one is really straightforward. Not a lot of people know about this, but we spent so much time talking about it. So you guys should be able to apply these 2 tests and determine whether or not a second party or third party exists. And most importantly as well, or finally, the pure economic loss due to actions. So because of my actions, I have caused someone, pure economic loss. So because I have done something, I have caused money loss to someone. So very different from statements. Statements is when you provide, financial documents. Actions, just remember the pair be upon criteria. And this is the test that you would have to prove. So you have to weigh these 5 factors. Ooh. So again, this is torts. This is what we spent the 2 weeks studying on as well. This is what we spent 2 weeks studying on. But if you guys look at the notes, this is essentially all that you need for the 2 weeks that you have. Firstly, the structure, how to respond to any tort type of questions as well, proving these 2 tests there as well, and the causation and remoteness test, and establishing whether or not a duty of care exists. So, of course, with that being said, this is not exhaustive. You guys would need to expand on this as well. So for negligent statement, someone asked, after you determine whether it was second party or third party, what test do you apply? So I'll get out the worksheet as well. If you look at this bottom one, this is the test that you would need to apply. So second party to third party refers to that image or diagram that I showed you guys. If it's second party, just go down. Here, prove these 3 facts. These 3 facts have to be, the answer has to be yes. And again, the 3 answers to this one has to be yes. So again, the answer for last week's practice question is here as well in order to determine whether or not a duty of care exists. So again, you guys can open I don't think you guys can Google stuff, but you guys can, open documents during your exam. So if you guys wanted to, or if you guys were ever confused about, some type of content that we covered or how to respond to it, you guys can open this and then look at the test that we applied. And again, just simply match it or make your analysis similar to it. So someone says, do you mind sending the Google Docs link again? I'll send it at the end of the session as well. So I haven't sent it yet for those that are still wondering. But yeah, this is essentially torts. Now we'll move on to quickly partnerships as well. Partnership, again, really, really straightforward. We firstly have to prove a partnership exists within these 3, by proving these 3 points. And that is from section 5. So again, to prove a partnership exists, you say, in accordance with section 5, we have to prove whether or not they are carrying on a business in common due to earn profit as well. And simply just match the facts from the case study, but always check your exceptions. This is really, really important. Not a lot of people do this. And to prove a partnership doesn't exist, prove it with section 6. Now, that is to prove whether or not a partnership exists. Now, we talk about partnership duties next. Again, this part is really, really, really simple. There's a little bit more, but our main focus here is fiduciary responsibilities, so honest obligations within each other. The most important one, or the one that they ask students on the most, is accountability for private profits. Slash secret commission. So if you are in a partnership, you cannot take private profit or secret commission. You have to disclose it with each other or share it with each other. So again, this partnership duty is really straightforward. We mainly look at 3. Again, just match the facts from the case study there. But the 2 most difficult ones, arguably, is liabilities and torts. So I know last week I combined it, but I thought it would be easier to separate it as well for you guys, because a lot of people got confused with this. When we talk about liabilities, we talk about section 9 and section 13, and that's in relation to debts within the partnership. So from the example I gave you guys last week, let me see if I can grab it out. It's always in relation to doing something for one of the partners purchasing something, And begging the question, do they actually have the authority to purchase this equipment? So it always has to do something with purchasing something else as well. But when we talk about torts, the easiest way to think about it is torts is when someone's trying to sue us. When someone's trying to sue us and seek for damages, we apply torts. But if you guys want to think about it this way, if it isn't torts, then it's liabilities. So that's one way I thought about it as well. Torts, you unintentionally did something. So in this example, if you guys remembered, Mira unintentionally gave someone food poisoning and they wanted to press damages on us, then we would apply section 14 and 16, which is this diagram here. Oh, again, not too difficult as well. Again, section 14, do they actually have, is it actually in the ordinary course of the partnership? So does Mira normally bake? And if it's yes, all partners then become liable because of section 16, where it says the plaintiff can sue jointly or severally. So they can sue either one of us or all of us. So that's what section 14 is. And again, liabilities, make sure you guys understand this. Liabilities is when you essentially purchase something and then within the partnership, you have a disagreement about if the partnership should take on the debt together or if one person should take on the debt themselves. So for attendance, yes, I'll send attendance out again in a little bit, but someone said here, for a company as partnership have section 5 with exception. What will be the requirement for a company? So we'll talk about company really, really soon as well. But this is essentially it. These 3 topics, that's basically it. This is literally every single possible topic you guys will get asked on. If you guys are looking for full marks, make sure you guys have a case for every single topic that we cover as well. If it's yes, make sure you have a case that supports yes. And if the answer is no, make sure you have a case that supports no. But that's essentially a quick snapshot into this entire unit as well. So if you guys been following along, seriously guys, make sure you guys follow the PowerPoint as well, because with the PowerPoint, I've tried to give you guys diagrams, how to respond to everything, how to respond if it's yes or how to respond if it's no as well. Make sure you guys, of course, there's some stuff that I didn't touch on, like the apparent authority test, but make sure you guys are familiar with that. Just have a section in your notes that says, if they don't have apparent authority, apply section 9 test, and just outline what section 9 test is. So someone says, Hadia said, in some aspects, there may not be a case. In that case, would a section be sufficient? So absolutely. If you can put a case in, put a case in. But if you can't put a case in, don't force it. So at the top here, I've popped, just be correct. All you have to do, actually, you don't even need to be correct. You just need to have the right structure. You just have to make sense. I'll get rid of be correct. I'll put in make sense instead. I've looked at the your assessment too as well, and I've looked at responses from them as well as the most recent one. You did the memorandum. People argued different things. People argued yes, people argued no, and people still got 20 out of 20 regardless. The only different thing was every single time you read it, it just made sense. You don't need to be correct. They were really strategic on how they presented their ideas as well. A lot of them that got full marks, they did dot points, some of the model answers as well. So that's something, again, I would really highly encourage you guys. You guys don't need the most complex answer. Just make it make sense. If you can put in a case, put in a case. But if the case doesn't fit, don't put in a case because then it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Now, that was essentially a quick snapshot. We'll go through some practice questions if we have time as well, but we'll quickly also visit company law because that is the final topic as well. So in company law, there's mainly 3 topics that you guys will ever get asked on. So the first one is director duties, company liability, and thirdly, insolvent trading. So Hadia asked a really good question before. Hadia said, what is the requirement for a company? Now, the answer to that is there's a lot, and you guys don't actually need to know that. The only thing you guys need to know is that there's two types of companies on earth. There's a private one that we call propriety limited and a public one that we call limited. Now, private companies, majority of companies are private companies. They're the easiest to establish and the easiest to actually build, and they are not on the stock exchange. However, public companies, may be on the stock exchange as well. So private companies, if you're a private company, you cannot be on the stock exchange. But if you're a public company, you may want to be on the stock exchange as well. Now, the reasoning why someone might want to become a private company versus a public company is because of your liabilities. So that's really important, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later on. With a private company, you are limited by shares. So, for example, if you own $10,000 worth of shares in a company, and if that company goes bankrupt, you are only limited by $10,000. For example, if the company owed $1,000,000, but you only owe $10,000 worth of shares, if that company goes bankrupt, you would only owe $10,000. So that's what a private company is. And again, you guys don't need to know this, but this is context. If you guys don't understand what a company is, everything else we talk about doesn't make sense. Now, public company, we'll talk about this later on, but it's limited by guarantee. So the directors within a company, they guarantee that the company will be solvent. They'll guarantee the company is essentially in good hands. Now, when we talk about the differing things between company and partnerships, there's quite a lot of things. The first one is tax benefits. When you are a company, you pay less tax. So that's a lot of times, a lot of people or a lot of partnerships, they turn into a company as well. Because you have less taxes, you get more money. And of course, who doesn't want more money? And on top of that as well, the main advantage here is liability. So I told you guys in a partnership, you and your partner, you share the liability. But in a company, the company name itself becomes liable. So for example, we'll go through an example to make it make more sense. But firstly, if you guys are part of any clubs within Monash, which I do encourage you guys to as well, you guys will always have something like the board of directors, which is your president, secretary, treasurer, that type of stuff. And beneath that, that's the president or CEOs. And they represent or they gather all the information from the director of operations. So director of operations, that's someone that does the day-to-day stuff in a business. So for example, the director of operations at a retail store would determine, which merchandise goes where, how the store layout should be presented, that type of stuff. Marketing, of course, marketing the goods. Director of finance and admins, again, pretty explanatory there. Director of sales, pushing for KPIs, and director of supply chain. So that's purchasing stock or inventory. And they would all then represent or would all provide the information towards the president or CEO, and the president or CEO would then tell the board of directors. Now, most of the time, the board of directors would hold a lot of the shares, and the president and CEO would be rewarded some shares, at the end of each year, depending on the bonus, that type of stuff. But again, you guys don't need to know that, but just know that each director has the opportunity or can have the opportunity to own shares within a company. And if you own shares within a company, you become a partial owner. So if you guys join a lot of investing clubs, or if you guys started investing already, for example, in like Apple stocks, you then become a shareholder in Apple, probably 0.00001%, but you still become a shareholder. If you own any shares of a company, you become a shareholder. And with that being said as well, you don't have to become a shareholder to become a director. But now we'll put it in the perspective of Monash University. So Monash University, it is a company, and I've popped this chart here for you guys. So our professor, Sharon Pickering, she's our vice chancellor and president. So that's who everyone basically reports to. Any day-to-day business, they report to Miss Sharon Pickering there. So we've got, if we look on the top left-hand corner, we've got Peter Marshall, who's our COO, and Anna, her surname, whatever her surname is, she's our CFO as well. And of course, they are all under Sharon there. So of course, these people, if you guys follow these charts, make sure you guys differentiate between director and officer. An officer isn't a director, but our main focus is director. So make sure you remember that. So all directors will have an obligation to maintain Monash in a certain way. So of course, Monash is a company. And what happens if Monash goes bankrupt? Will the bank, or will the person who ever loaned the money to Monash, will they go after Sharon Pickering? That's when I was talking about liabilities here before. And the answer here is no. If Monash went bankrupt, Monash just falls. Sharon Pickering walks away, finding another job. Monash is a if we go back here, Monash is almost like a public company. We are limited by guarantee. So Monash, I'm pretty sure they don't put out shares because they are a not-for-profit university, a public university. But you guys, anyways, sorry, I'm yapping a little bit. But anyways, if Monash were to ever go bankrupt, this is the main thing about a company. The banks, they wouldn't go after Sharon. They wouldn't go after any directors that's listed out here. Monash would simply just fall. The banks would cop a loss. And this is different from a partnership, like I told you guys last week. If the partnership went bankrupt, the bank would actually go after the assets of the people a part of the partnership, the partners. But they can't seize Sharon Pickering's house if Monash went bankrupt. So that's an advantage of being a company. Your liabilities are limited within the company's name. The company, Monash University, becomes a legal person. It's almost like you've given birth to a new person, but instead of it being person, it's sort of like fictional. And this fictional person is Monash University. So that's what essentially a company is. There's two types, private and public. There's directors that run the company, and within a director, there's officers that run it. Directors, they're really important. They essentially call the shots. But of course, with directors comes director duties. So there's mainly 4 duties that we look at as well. So we say directors, they have to act in due care and diligence. And that's outlined in section 180, subsection 1. And there's a test that you have to follow for that as well. Moving on, we say directors have to act in good faith and best interest as well, which is reflected in section 181. And then in section 182 to 183, we say directors have to avoid conflict of interest. So for example, Sharon Pickering cannot work at Melbourne University and Monash University because that would be a conflict of interest as well. And lastly, we say that directors cannot insolvent trade. Now, what is insolvent trading as well? It's basically trading when you're insolvent. So basically, you have no money, you're insolvent. Your company no longer has any assets, but you still want to purchase stuff. You want to purchase investments. You want to, hire new teachers, that type of idea. But you're poor. You can't do that. That's insolvent trading. The way that they would do that is they would take out a loan in Monash's name. And the company, Monash has a lot of assets, so they would approve it, even though Monash has no capabilities of paying them back. That's what insolvent trading is. But anyways, back to this point here, we say all of these directors, so anyone that doesn't have officer attached to their name, we say they have to, act in these 4 ways. They cannot do anything else. They cannot act with, they cannot have conflicts of interest if they are a director. Officer, they may, but if there's a contract, they potentially cannot. But that's really important. An officer, if it's not outlined in their contract, they may potentially be able to work at a different university. But generally, if you're a director, you have to follow these rules, even if it's not listed out in your contract. So again, that's really, really important there as well. And if you're you may be a shareholder of a company, but you also may not be a director. So for example, if I owned Apple shares, I'm not a director at Apple, I wish, but I'm not a director. So I don't have to act in these 4 ways. So only directors, people within the company that have the title director. So for example, your COO or your director of finance, that type of stuff, they have to act in these 4 ways. But again, our main focus will be the first 3 to begin with: due care plus diligence, good faith and best interest, and avoid conflict of interest there. What happens if you don't act in those 3 ways? Of course, there's damages for everything. So there's civil damages. So what is civil damages? That essentially means you cannot go to jail. But again, civil penalty, disqualification, fine, criminal offense if reckless or dishonest. So again, I think that's pretty hard to prove. But again, potentially as well, if you breach section 181 and 183, and section 191 to 195, that's a fine. But we don't really focus about that too much. But yeah, that's essentially what a director duty is. So make sure you guys understand what the test is. The test, again, is really, really, really straightforward. But with that being said, one thing that we will talk about really quickly is that if you prove a director didn't act in due care plus diligence, so that in other words, they failed Section 180, the director has a chance to argue Section 180, subsection 2. So they have a chance to argue a defense. And if they argue a defense, then they wouldn't have breached Section 180. So just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, now again, that is essentially director duties. Really, really straightforward topic as well. But the biggest topic or the most important topic, like I told you guys here before, is insolvent trading. So there's almost always a question about insolvent trading as well. Now, like I told you guys, it's when you trade, when you make business decisions, when your company literally has no ways of paying the loan back. You're incapable of paying the loan back. Now, you guys may think it's really obvious that, just reading a case study, you might be able to tell right away. But no, you actually have to do a couple steps to prove it. So firstly, you have to prove that the company was insolvent when the debt was incurred or becomes insolvent when the debt was incurred. So you always have to address that as well. Secondly, when the debt was incurred, were there reasonable grounds for suspecting, not actual knowledge, the company is insolvent or would become insolvent? So for example, sometimes the president, so Sharon before, she might be like really, really busy and she might not know that Monash is bankrupt. So that begs the question, were there reasonable grounds for suspecting that the company is insolvent? So in other words, that could be like, could this company pay off their last week's loan? Or any evidence that shows the company is insolvent? But the most important thing is actual knowledge of insolvency is not required. So this could also include low cash reserves or failure to pay like bills or wages, that type of idea. So not actual knowledge, but just reasonable grounds to prove or to actually be aware that the company would become insolvent. And thirdly, as well, did the directors know or suspect at the time the debt was incurred, the company is insolvent? So if not, would a reasonable director in a similar position and circumstances, would they have known? So your answer to all three of these have to be yes. So this is really, really important to prove that a director was actually trading insolvently as well. So again, you just have to match the facts with the case study. But we'll try and see if we can go through a table as well. But this is the test that you would have to apply. Now, why is this important? This is such an important thing because your damages that you get from this become so much more severe. So we talk about civil penalty. If Sharon borrowed a loan of $1 million to establish a building like LTB, but it turned out Monash was actually insolvent, and it was determined that she was insolvently trading, she could become personally liable for all of the debt. She could become personally liable for that $1 million. So that's very different from what I told you guys before, because I told you within a company, if you have debt, the debt dies with the company. They can't chase after your assets if you are a director in a company. But if you insolvently trade, then you can become personally liable because of Section 588J there. So directors may also have to compensate the co or liquidator, or the liquidator may seek compensation for creditors as well. Secondly, criminal offense. So that's like going to jail and stuff. Recovery by liquidator and recovery by creditor. But that's really important as well. So they can become personally liable. So that's really different from what I told you guys. That's the most important thing. So personally liable if you insolvently trade. With that being said, however, there are defenses for anything. So the ones that we will look at, Section 588H, again, simply match the facts, but this is really, really sort of hard to prove as well. The most important thing, or what they will ask you sometimes, is the safe harbor defense. So what is the safe harbor defense? So take on this perspective, you guys. If you guys, for example, if you are in charge of Monash, if you were Sharon Pickering and Monash went bankrupt, what would you do? So any financial person, they wouldn't let Monash collapse. Maybe they would spend, have a high budget on marketing to attract more students to get more income, higher marketing money, like higher marketing potential, like higher marketing overseas to attract more international students to raise revenue, that type of idea, if you're poor. So with that being said, if you're poor, Like, how would you do it? If you have no money, what would you do? You would try to get more money to dig yourself out of the debt, right? So sometimes when these companies have no money, they actually go into more debt to try to dig themselves out of debt. So that's quite, you know, that's quite backwards in a way, but essentially that's what the safe harbor defense is. So, for example, if your company is bankrupt and you have reasonable grounds that if you go into more debt, that this debt would become such a good investment that it would dig yourself out of insolvency, then you can argue the safe harbor defense and you will succeed. So, in other words, is do you have reasonable grounds to take out a bigger loan, to go into more debt, to essentially dig yourself out of debt? So that's what the safe harbor defense is. And that's what section 588, a lot of it is as well. So that's what a lot of it argues. So again, to reiterate, because a lot of the times they ask you a question on this as well. If you are insolvently trading, then we say almost immediately you are liable for all of these things unless you can prove that there was reasonable grounds for you to do what you did to dig the company out of debt. But what that means is you don't actually have to succeed. Of course, with all business decisions, that's never confirmed. That's never 100% true, you know? You can't say, because I'm doing this, it's 100% guaranteed that I'm going to get myself out of this debt. That's not true. So that's what the safe harbor defense also has the leeway of giving as well. You don't have to succeed in order to actually argue the safe harbor defense. So, for example, if Sharon Pickering takes out an extra $1 million loan to, advertise overseas, thinking that it would actually, create $10 million and dig Monash University out of debt. But in fact, it doesn't work out well. The international students want to go to Melbourne University instead, and our Monash is in a bigger hole, bigger debt than what it originally was in. She could potentially argue the safe harbor defense. Now, the most important thing to note as well, the final thing to note, is that there must be reasonable grounds. So what is reasonable grounds? That's reasonable advice. So from someone like a financial expert, an accountant, that type of stuff. So Sharon Pickering can't be like, okay, I'm going to do this because it seems like a good idea. She must have, a lot of consultations with financial experts, her team, to actually see to it to be a prospectful idea as well. So that's really important. And they almost ask a question. They most likely, 99%, I'm sure they'll ask you a question on insolvent trading. And I'm 99% sure they'll ask you a question regarding the safe harbor defense as well. So just remember that in case they do. So that's, again, really, really important. But again, the final topic that we will talk about when it comes to the realm of company or corporation law is liabilities. Now, liabilities, like I told you before, you took on a debt. So, for example, if we go back to this Monash chart over here, who's someone that we can pick on? So say we look at Peter Marshall, and under Peter Marshall, we've got Mr. Fabian here, who is the marketing and admissions officer. So I'm assuming Peter does a lot of the marketing with Monash because that does make sense because he is the COO anyways. But anyways, so say Peter took out a loan for $1 million to advertise for Monash internationally. What then happened? What a question that you may get is who becomes liable for that $1 million that Michael just spent? Would he become liable or will it come out of Monash's bank account? It begs the question then, did Michael have actual authority? So if he had actual authority to spend $1 million on marketing, then yes, the company then will pay for the $1 million. But if Michael did not have actual authority, so say if I took out $1 million and I wanted Monash to pay for it, obviously I do not have actual authority. And then assume I don't have a parent authority as well, then I would be liable for the $1 million I spent for Monash for advertising. But the most important thing here to note is last week we did the parent authority test, which was section 9. This time in company law, we look at section 129. And most importantly as well, there's like 8 subsections in 129. The one that I would encourage you guys to look at is subsection 3. That's something that worked out really well for me. If you guys are fixated on proving all 8 points, a lot of the times I spoke to a lot of teachers as well. A lot of the times they keep giving different recommendations, which becomes really, really difficult in law as well. So, and I really get that for you guys because you guys always say, my tutor said this. There's always a lot of different perspectives to look at things. When you guys get a question, if to prove a parent authority, you look at section 129. There's 8 subsections in it. And I would say do the one that your tutor recommends you to do. So some tutors recommend like 1 and 7, 2 and 4, or just 5. When I did it, I did subsection 3 and it worked for me, but that doesn't mean it will work for you. So I would say double check this. But in order to prove a parent authority, it's section 129. Now, I'll just say double check this with your tutor as well. This is sort of a little bit on the fence, a little bit for me. But again, a parent authority, really simple. If it passes, then the company is liable. If it's not, then the agent is liable there. So beautiful. With that being said, that is company law in 20 minutes. That is essentially everything that you would potentially get asked on. So liabilities, director duties, and insolvent trading. So make sure you guys understand the test of each one that we quickly just went through as well. And make sure you guys just have an idea of what a company is. If you see propriety limited or limited, then you know you apply company law right away. But if you don't see PTY Ltd or limited, then you apply partnership law then. So with that being said, that is it. That is essentially it for this entire semester. So if you guys look at this document as well, I didn't really fill it out for this part. Do with this as you will. I'll send you guys this as well right now. If you guys wanted to use this, you can, but make sure you just download it and not actually write on it to let those who wanted to modify it for themselves. I'll pop that one in the chat there as well. And I'll try to find more resources to give to you guys pretty soon. Like practice questions I did or some practice responses I did. I did have a practice question here, but again, I don't think it'll be much beneficial for you guys to go through it together because we only have 16 minutes left. But again, I would encourage you guys to work through it as well. Just follow the steps that we talked about. And of course, I'll email you guys the solutions too. But some things I'll quickly talk about is your exam revision. So make sure you guys keep working through this worksheet and make sure you guys understand each test that we did. So we didn't talk about the law of agency, but again, it's just really self-explanatory in itself. An agent is someone, a third party that has been contracted for your business. And you gave them the authority to do something. So now they become the agent and they can act on your behalf, and anything they do within the authority they're given, you are linked together. So make sure you guys understand those type of nuances as well. Make sure you start compiling your exam notes. So of course, the notes I gave you guys were extremely summarized. If you guys don't understand a single step or anything that we went through, you guys won't understand what we talked about as well. You won't for example, if I've given this to a random commercial law student, they would be like, what the hell? Like, this makes no sense. So make sure, essentially, don't take this for granted. Don't think because you have something to refer to, you'll understand it. That's not how commercial law works. If you don't actually understand the question you're reading, even if you have the notes to do so, it just won't make sense. The most important topic here is to not even be correct, is to make sense. So make sure you guys understand everything we talked about as well. Top tip, if you can teach the topic to someone else, like a parent or a friend, you can understand the content really well. Something that worked out really well for me is I made a Google Docs with my friend, a case table summary, and we just spent like an hour collating all the cases that we needed to know, and we just shared the documents after. I would recommend you guys do something similar instead of one person take on all the cases by themselves. Just share your cases with each other. Like, super easy, no plagiarism or collusion there because each person would apply the cases a little bit differently. Summarize what each case is in dot points to make sure you could quickly skim over it and read it and make sense. But yeah, that is essentially it. Because we don't have much time left, there's not really a point of us going through the practice question. We probably will go through some more practice questions with each topic on Thursday instead, because we've covered the entire topic today. But before we go to a quick Q&A sessions, I'd say if I don't see you guys on Thursday, farewell, good luck. Thank you so much for joining my session this entire semester as well. I really enjoyed your guys' company. You guys were really good so far. I've looked at a lot of you guys' practice response and you guys have been killing it so far. So no doubt in my mind, you guys will do really well in your assessment in commercial law, as well as any future assessments you have. I'm sure you guys will do really well at Monash. If you guys enjoyed the final two topics we covered, it's really similar to finance and economics. So I would highly encourage you guys to look into finance or economics as a major if you guys like learning how investments work, how stocks work, how partnerships work, companies, that type of stuff. And we do look a bit of that, we look at it a little bit in accounting, finance, and economics. So that's just some guides for you guys. But essentially it. So goodbye and good luck for those that don't want to stay for the Q&A session. You guys have been amazing this entire semester. So thank you for participating all year long. And yeah, it's quite sad for me, to be honest, as well. But yeah, I'll pop the attendance for those that still want it as well. And thank you, Gabriel. That was really nice as well. And I'll send the Google Docs for week 11 pass. So yeah, so I guess the most important thing is if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask it as well. But the most important thing from my side, at least, is I hope you guys have found these sessions beneficial. Beneficial, helpful, a little bit more summarized and a little bit more easy to understand and follow along as well. And I truly do wish you guys the best of luck. For those that still aren't confident as well, sometimes I ask you guys on a scale of 1 to 10, and sometimes I get like a low, like 2, which I get it. Don't stress as well. I was really a 2 when I did this unit. I'm a really big procrastinator, so don't stress if you procrastinate a lot as well. I really only learned what I needed to learn. So that's what I encourage you guys to do as well. Make really good use of your time. What else can I say? Make good use of your time. If you're falling behind, don't stress. You'll get there in the end. It will be worth it in the end as well. But yeah. Okay, so a couple of you guys are asking for the worksheets. I'll send out the third-party worksheet first. Let's just have it up. That's the most important thing. Just help each other, and you guys will find it to be more beneficial than working by yourself. Literally, this is a real story. The day before the commercial exam, when I did it last year, I literally had the Blackpink concert, and I got home like maybe 4 a.m. that day, and I did my exam at like 9:30 a.m. in the morning, and I still did really well as well. And I really only learned the content, or really had an understanding of the content 2 to 3 days before my actual exam, before I actually went to the concert. So if I can do it, you guys can do too, for those that are still worried. So I know you guys are going to crush it. And again, I did the exam on 5 hours of sleep, and I did pretty well. So if I can do well, anything I know, I've told you guys. So you guys will really do well. And I really mean that as well. Now, someone also asked for week 11. So I'll put out week 11 for you guys. And I'll put out the partnership ones as well. Oh, the partnership one was the one I sent last week. And with that, there's a corporation law question on there as well. So if you guys wanted to do it, just scroll down a little bit more to the bottom and you guys can do the corporation question. I'm pretty sure in the coming weeks, your tutor will send you I think Ben told me he'll give you a document with practice questions with no practice solutions as well. So that then it becomes a really good idea to do it together with friends. Make sure you get the same answer. So again, I encourage you guys to do that as well. But of course, I did a couple, so I'll try to see if I can find mine and then I can share that with you guys. I'll make it into a Google Docs as well. Oh, that was week 12 and week 13, the one I just sent. But yeah, I think that's enough yapping from me. So thank you for those that said thanks as well. I really enjoyed your guys' company as well. You guys have given me this job. So if you guys didn't attend, I probably would have been fired. Oh, wait, with that being said, hold up. So, because I will actually get fired if I don't get you guys to do this as well. So there is a survey that they wanted me to send out for you guys. So please do this survey as well to let them know that I actually have people attending these sessions and these sessions aren't actually useless. So I don't get fired. So I will send that to you as well. So please do that link as well. Please do that survey. But yeah, if I ever see you guys on campus, definitely come say hi. And yeah. So do you know if there are practice solutions for questions from each topic? I think they give you like one from each topic, but it's only one part of each topic. So they don't give you the full, like you'll get like 5 practice questions from each week, but they'll only give you practice solutions to 1 or 2 of them. When I did it at least, but that's what I heard as well. Could be different, but I'll keep you guys updated through emails. Thank you guys, and thank you for those that have been attending as well. I know, so of course it's still Thursday. If you guys wanted to ask any questions, or maybe on Thursday we'll go through a sample exam as well, or we'll go through each, I'll make a practice exam, and I'll tell you guys which format to do for each type of question, and then you guys can practice it yourself as well. So maybe on Thursday we'll do something different. Definitely on Thursday as well. So yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, you guys are more than free to go as well. I'll stay around until 4 for those that are still strangling around. But yeah. But if not, I'll see you guys soon. Good luck, everyone. You guys have got this. Bye all. Do you guys have any questions, Min? No questions? If not, I'll probably head off as well now, Min. But good luck for everything. Email me if you have any questions. Take care. See ya.